Okay, so I think we'll get started. So this is a meeting of the Rutland Zoning Board of Appeals. Present are Tamika Murphy, Secretary, Chris Senical, Robert Paulson, Paul Corain, I'm Rick Surratt. So the purpose of this meeting is a pre-application conference. The applicant is Blue Sky Tower 3 for a proposed personal wireless service facility at 12 Phillips Road in Rutland. So we have a representative from Blue Sky Tower, Daniel Klosnick. So can you hear us, Mr. Klosnick?
Yes, sir, Mr. Chairman. Perfectly fine, thank you.
Great. All right. So would you like to just take the floor and just give us an idea of what this tower project is all about?
Very much so, thank you. First of all, I wanted to thank the board for the opportunity to meet with you this evening. This is so helpful to my client and myself. What I did is I put together some documentation for this pre-application conference. I had submitted correspondence describing what we're proposing to do, along with an authorization letter from the property owner. We also included a sketch plan and AT&T as the anchor tenant and co-applicant. We included their detailed RF report just to give this board a little background about why we're before you and what we're proposing to do.
Okay.
The property at 12 Phillips Road is in the residential 40 zoning district, and it consists of approximately 12.94 acres. It has a residence on it, but by and large, it's an undeveloped parcel of land. The project itself and what we're proposing will consist of installing a 140-foot Fort Carrier monopole type tower. There will be available antenna heights at 136, 126, 116, and 106. So it's designed to accommodate, as I said, those four carriers. The AT&T installation, as we show on the sketch plans, will have the top height of 136 feet. The proposed ground space for the facility is approximately 3,600 square feet, 60 by 60. And around that area, we will install a fence, 6-foot high fence with barbed wire. Inside of that area, that will accommodate the necessary space for the AT&T equipment, the ground equipment, as well as 3 further wireless service providers. What we're proposing currently is the access coming off of Phillips Road. There's already an existing driveway, so we would be utilizing that and then extending it back into the area where the tower will be located. Utilities, what's necessary really is just electric and fiber. Those will also be brought underground to existing service on Phillips Road. One aspect that we did discuss, I had a staff meeting back in November, and we did discuss the possibility of either bringing access and or utilities via the access road for the school that runs behind this property. At that particular meeting, I know public safety expressed some concerns about using it for access, but it seemed as if everyone was open to utilities from that area. We've made some efforts to contact the school department. We were told from the DPW and from David George that they control that. So just to have that in the background for the board, really the preferred route for Blue Sky is to utilize that access road, not only for the utilities, but also for access. But based upon the feedback we received to date, we're showing it as it is on the plans.
Okay.
Let's see what else to say. Okay, just in regards to the relief that would be necessary for my review of the bylaw, it's an allowed use by special permit in that R40 zoning district, but your bylaw includes certain height limitations. So we would also need to request a dimensional variance. In addition, we are in the process of having the wetlands flagged. On that staff meeting was the conservation agent, and we discussed it a little bit. He didn't seem to have particular concerns, but we would need to flag the wetlands, likely have to go to the Conservation Commission because we would probably be within the buffer zones. And then just for the purpose, the AT&T report says it's necessary to address a gap on Highway 122A, Highway 56, and really throughout this area of Rutland. So that's the essential outline of the project that we're proposing. And once again, I appreciate the opportunity to meet with you folks and discuss it.
Okay, thank you very much. Chris, did you have any comment or questions for Mr. Klasnick?
Yeah, Rick, please, if I may. Just a couple of a few things to discuss. If you mentioned that if you don't get access off that school access road, would you locate the tower closer to Phillips Road, or would you still do it the way you've shown on this plan?
No, it would be as proposed on the plan.
As proposed on the plan. Okay, thank you. Let's see. Has any balloon test been done, or is that something you would just be willing to look at in the future?
Yeah, so that was one of the things I was hoping to discuss with you. I noticed in your bylaw there is a noticed requirement for a balloon test, and certainly we would work with you for publishing notice and everything. But it did include a requirement that it lasts 72 hours, which isn't really practical given that it's a balloon. We're lucky if we can get it to fly straight for 4 hours given wind and everything like that. So I guess I would just be asking the board to look at that requirement, and perhaps we could limit it or modify it in some manner. I think your bylaw spoke to having that within 30 days after this pre-application conference, or within 21 days after we file the application.
Right.
My preference, because I like to include the photo sims with the application, would probably be to do it before we file. I'm not exactly sure when we would file. We still need to, as I said, finalize our plans. So it might not be a couple months. So I don't know if the board's preference would be to do it, that far in advance, or how you'd like to work that. But yeah, we definitely would want to do that with the board.
Right. Well, how long do you think you need to have that thing in the air, the balloon in the air?
Well, typically to do the drive analysis that they do to prepare the photosims, they can do that in a couple hours. But what we've done in the past is like from 8 in the morning till 12 noon, something like that. 4 hours is typically a reasonable period of time. So we could try and leave it up longer, but we couldn't guarantee that the wind wouldn't blow it down. And sometimes it ends up in the trees, gets popped, all that other stuff. So
right.
And Rick, there's really two trains of thought with the balloon test. Number one is, as Mr. Klasnick has discussed, they want to get the pictures, and so they can add that to the report. The other purpose of the balloon test, though, is to give the abutters time to see this. And 4 hours is just not really reasonable for that. And that's why the 72-hour time limit in the bylaw is what it is. Does it need to be 72 hours? And does the wind not blow in Rutland, in 72 hours? I don't think you'll find that 72-hour window, Mr. Klasnick. Good luck to you. But we, it's just something to discuss and try to, mitigate with the applicant. But also make sure the townspeople understand what's going on. That, if it is 4 hours, make sure they get a chance to see it. That's all.
Yeah. In the past, I've seen it done for 6 hours, sometimes 8 hours, weather permitting. But 72 hours is a long time.
Yeah, that's pretty.
Yeah,
that's pretty. But you want to make sure everybody's got a chance to kind of go from work and come home from work and get a look at it. Within that daytime, whatever period that is. And again, depending on the daylight and where we are, what time of year it is.
Yeah, usually.
I'm sure we can work that out to a reasonable time frame.
Done on a Saturday, usually. That's usually when they do it, right? To have most people have a chance to see it.
Yeah, whatever works best for the board and the town. We can do it on the weekend.
All right. Is there any other board member like to address the balloon issue since we're here? Bob?
I'm sorry, Chris, did you take a look at Phillips Road? Did you go over there and look at the property?
I did not.
So I went over there. So it's pretty wooded. I just wonder how high those trees are. I mean, 140 feet sounds high, but those trees are pretty big in there. And
I was going to ask that. Do you have a height of the canopy right now, the existing canopy, Mr. Klasnick?
No, we don't. That would be something we would do as part of the zoning drawings.
Okay.
But let me see.
Just to determine that exact height of variance, if you will, that you're requesting. You know what I mean? We'd probably be one to know that. I mean, obviously, this is just a pre-conference here, but
Chris, to your point, Chris, I was just looking at that, and it's going off just going off village zoning district. It's 4 stories or 50 feet on the house. You can go
you can't go 50 feet at a house in Rutland.
They got a building here. I just found one of the zoning district, village district. I think it said 50 feet height max, 4 story. But so let's say that's the maximum height we had enough. It's on page, where was it?
Residential in town, you can only go 32 or 36 feet. I mean, I just went through it myself in town with you. I don't know the building side of things, Paul. That might be higher for like in one of the industrial zones.
Yeah, this was village district or whatever.
Okay. Yeah.
I think that's outside the village district, isn't it, down there? It's close.
Yeah. That's the residential. I'm not sure what. I got a zoning map. I don't know what that is.
Well, I have it as R40, if that's helpful.
R40, yeah. So that's just the that's the residential. It's not the deep residential. It's the kind of the middle residential. It's like R60. I think that's kind of further out, a little more dense.
Yeah, but my concern is, all right, even call 36 someplace in there. They're talking about 150-foot tower, 140-foot tower somewhere in there. That's way.
Tower.
Huh?
It's a good sized tower.
Yeah, and this thing's gonna stick way out.
All right, so I think we're going to cover all these issues, once the petition has been submitted. But I think the petitioner wants to do the balloon test prior to filing the petition. So I was kind of trying to focus in on that. Now, Paul, do you have any thoughts about the duration, advertising, notice, anything on that balloon issue?
Well, again, like you were saying, it's the residents have to be able to see what this thing is going to be at, and 8 to 12 definitely doesn't fit that window. I would think more if you were going to do maybe even do 2 days or something. Do a Saturday midday, do a weekday towards the end of the evening. I mean, you got to be able to accommodate different people's work schedules that may live in the area. Well, actually, the entire town. People are driving by there. They're going to see that is the center of town. And I definitely think that people need to be made aware of the fact that this is happening, and that what that balloon test is for, so that they're well informed.
Right. Okay. Thanks, Mr. Klasnick. Are you open to the idea of having two 4-hour windows? One Saturday, like maybe in the morning, and then maybe a weekday afternoon. Are you open to that?
Yes, I'm sure my client would be more than willing to accommodate.
Yeah, that sounds fairly reasonable. You got one in the morning on a weekend, and then you got one in the evening. I mean, it seems fairly reasonable. Okay, so
that note also, Rick, they have the town agenda thing that signs up at the town hall, and they could post it up there as well for the general public to see it a week in advance or a week or two in advance prior to the actual test, so that everybody's, not just the abutters, notified, but like to Paul, everybody in town kind of gets the
right. And it would be in. I would assume it would be in the landmark. It'd be on the town, maybe the town website. I don't know, the landmark. I don't know. Mr. Klasnick, do you typically advertise in the local paper when these balloons?
Yes. Yeah. Well, it depends on the circumstances and the bylaw and what the board asks, but yeah, we can certainly work with the town for publication. And typically we include some inclement weather provision in there for an alternative date.
Okay. All right. So why don't we ask Mr. Klasnick, within a reasonable amount of time of tonight to come up with a plan. And then we can circulate the plan. We can have we can decide, we could see if that works. Does that work for everybody, or do you think we need to hash it out right now?
I think that works.
Oh, that.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, I don't think we need to hash it out now. I don't want to drag this out over this.
Right.
Moving along here, but I think he gets the point what we're looking for. But just make the townspeople know and the abutters know what's going on, and
Right.
he's more experienced enough to put a plan together to accomplish that.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thanks. All right. So, Mr. Klasnick, why don't you do that? Why don't you put together a plan, and you could email it to the ZBA secretary and David George, Tamika and David George, and then we'll circulate it that way. And if there's any issue, worst case scenario, we'll have to get together again for an informal, follow up to this. But I'm hoping we don't have to. As far as the rest of the plan, the proposed tower, does anybody have any burning issue you want to bring up right now? Because I don't at this point. Go ahead, Chris.
Yeah, just a few other things. Do we require, and I don't know if anybody knows or if this is something that's normal, Mr. Klasnick, but a bond to remove the tower if it becomes abandoned? How is that process usually normally set up? And
Well, it certainly is something that we've seen in the past, and not something that would be objectionable. Typically, what I ask is the project engineer to prepare an estimate of the removal costs, and that's something that's submitted with the application. And then if it's acceptable to the board, we utilize that for the removal bond.
Okay, terrific. And also the fall zone, will that be shown on your formal site plan approval? And the distances, like on the drawing you have now on page 7 of your submission, you show the lot and where that is and the access coming off of the Phillips Road. But we don't really have the dimensions from the tower to like that public access way between the 2 schools and to the other residential type properties. You'll have all that shown on there with the fall zone, correct?
Yes, absolutely. And I suspect we're well away from that.
Sure. Yeah. No problem. Just kind of want to talk about these things to make sure we don't surprise you when it's better to get it all on the plan up front, right?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Nobody wants to do it twice,
A few items that I was hoping to just discuss with the board too when we're ready, as far as location.
As far as the height, now you've got this at 140 feet, and you also have 3 other antennas that will mount lower than this. Is based on your RF, and I read through your thing how they calculate that out. You get the computer program, whatever. Does this have to be 140? What did 106 as your lowest point? Is that where your software or your program, your engineering says we can't go any lower than that with an antenna? Like, just explain to me how you guys, those distances, those heights, and maximums for this particular location.
Yes, well, that's determined by AT&T's RF department, the network design engineers. Blue Sky Towers is a tower company. Basically, they lease space. So AT&T has provided us with the information of the minimum height that they believe is necessary to satisfy their network objectives. And then we're just showing that this will allow for co-location opportunities at those lower heights.
Okay. And is this particular AT&T new location, are they taking another antenna off of another tower in Rutland area or in this general, central Mass area? Or are they just adding, this is just a straight up add? They're not relocating or reducing one anywhere else, are they?
I'm not absolutely certain. I think I've heard some discussion that there might be a church steeple that they're in currently that doesn't work for them. But I believe, I'm not certain of that. This might be involved in that as well.
Okay. Nice to have some background on that if they were, if this was a relocation or if this is just a brand new one. From what you've submitted, it shows the other 3 or 4 existing towers in the Rutland kind of town area. One might be in Holden and one might be in Paxton, but it doesn't state whether you're relocating one or reducing one of those or any other one around those. That's all.
Anything that they show on their maps, that's part of the network design, so they would not be decommissioning any of those sites.
Okay,
This
All right.
would be in addition to those sites to fill in that gap.
okay. And there's also something in the bylaw about if you're within so many feet of historical or scenic, views. I don't know if anybody on the board knows if there's any other scenic views in this area, but or also to you, Mr. Klasnick, if you know of any scenic views or anything that this would be close to or within those boundaries, do you know?
I don't believe so. I know as part of its FCC licensing, they do go through a NEPA process, and that's one of the aspects they look at. I know your bylaw includes that. That's not something that's typically done prior to the local permitting. So I don't know for certain, but usually they look at that.
They could, yeah, just something they could put in their final submission, correct? Right. Yeah. These are just things I'm just kind of bringing up to, just, so you're prepared for those.
Thank you.
And again, that 300-foot zone all around the tower, usually I think they require that as well in our final submission, to show, what's within the 300-foot zone of the tower and whatnot. And one other thing just to be cognizant of, we have a decibel level minimum. You can have the backup generator on site. It's a gas-fired unit from what it looks like on your drawing. You have the propane tank there. So sometimes, depending, I don't know how you do a dB test near someone's lot line. We've got a 50 dB minimum at the lot line. So some of these generators, they usually come like around high 80 dB. There are enclosures you can put around those things like a Pritchard Brown or an equal that keeps that reduces that sound level and cuts down the dB quite considerably. So just something to think about and, have your engineers run through. Okay.
Great. Thank you.
All right. Thank you very much, Chris. Any other board members have any concerns at this time?
I don't have really a concern, Rick. I just want to know about this 53A. It talks about the facility should not be projected any higher than 10 feet above the average tree canopy. So there's there's some pretty high trees. I don't know how high they are, but so that's the most it can go is 10 feet over the canopy around it. That's why I read it.
Yeah, we're gonna have to look at that.
Well, yeah. So that's the way you read it, right? It's 10 feet above the tree canopy. But the one on Campbell Street, that thing's huge.
All right, I know you're. I know
that's
that.
A big guide. That's a big a triple guide, pole. That thing.
That's 600 feet.
10 feet above the canopy. Now I don't remember how that got approved. That thing was, I think it was before my time. I don't know if you remember that, Rick, at all. But
no, it was right before I got on.
Yeah. So I don't know if they got a but I'm not sure we had this bylaw at that time.
Yeah, we might not have.
I don't think we did. I think I remember this bylaw coming out when we were on the board. So that was already done. So I remember this bylaw coming up. Remember the one they wanted to put in the center of town? So this came to us.
For the fire chief, for the fire department one, yeah.
Yeah, I think this came in
right around that time.
Right around that time because it was planning board or something before that.
Yeah, no, man. Yeah. I guess, the whole point of the matter is, the balloon test helps the applicant out to see what we can, what height we can do. I don't want to sit here and say, I'm totally against anything 10 feet above the canopy. Obviously, that's our bylaw. We got to look at that strongly. But, how high does the tower have to be to work? And, I think those are some of the things that I think that's where it gets a little tricky because it's AT&T's engineering. It's them telling you they need 140 feet. Well, it's nice to have 40 feet. You got 3 other tenants below you too, making money off of that. So it's just a little tricky, how high we want to, work this whole thing. And listen, improving cellular coverage today is it's super valuable. So
Chris,
you dispute AT&T's facts. If they say it's got to be 140, what do you do? I'm not.
Well, Chris, to your point, from what I know about telecommunication, you come down the lowest point in that tower is the minimum they actually need, but they want to be able to lease
106.
out.
Yeah, anything will work at the 106. And they
but then you can't lease out any space.
Exactly. So and again, yeah, and we want to we want to try to look at this from a cost. That's certainly a concern. I'm not against just something to do it. Cost it does matter to me, and I want to make something financially feasible. But at the end of the day, there's other concerns too.
Sure. All right. So, does anyone else have anything further? We pretty well good for.
And I'd just like to say, I think it's a pretty good plan that, Mr. Klasnick and the team of those guys, Blue Sky and everybody put together. There's a lot of good information on here. They do reference, there's a lot of good detail reading through his 24 pages. And, it's certainly helpful for a pre-conference. So I just want to, commend him for putting a lot of detail together that necessarily he really didn't have to do for this hearing.
Yeah, I would reiterate that as well. Yeah.
One thing I would probably be prepared for when we do have the formal meeting on this, based on our history, what we learned before. The public is going to be very concerned about radiation levels. I mean, remember there was a lot of that going on. So I would be prepared to address those concerns just based on the history that we had.
Especially near the schools, Paul. Yeah, good.
Yeah, exactly.
Mr. Klasnick, especially when you're right between two schools. I mean, half the kids, 2/3 of the kids in town are right near this thing. So, get ready.
Okay. Great. Well, thank you very much, members.
Even though every kid wears a cell phone right on them,
Yeah. I know.
500 phones in every school, but
I know.
it's the big bad tower, right?
Yeah. All right. Okay. So, Mr. Klasnick, did you have anything further at this time?
Yeah, if just a couple things. I don't want to keep you folks any longer than necessary, but just in regards to the alternative we discussed, I don't know if the board has any preference as to accessing utilities from that other location. We're trying to see if we've tried to have that conversation with the school department, but we haven't had any success, to be honest with you. So we're just trying to see if the board supports that, if maybe that would be helpful in opening the discussion.
It's funny. I thought about that because there's 3-phase coming down the road that feeds Central Tree right along the opposite side of that access road. Telephone lines are there. I thought about, geez, that's a good spot just to come off of. But the only concern personally I would have is just making sure the kids don't go up that access road, and create a problem. So some way to fence that off and just keep general public from going up there and being a bother to you, or just being a problem for a place for kids to go. I think that would be my major concern there. But other than that, I don't think it's a problem if they access that area.
Yeah, if you haven't gotten a hold of the people that control the utilities, we will make sure that they respond. I want to hear what they have to say. Certainly by the time that we get to the meeting, and I'm sure you want to get to this sooner. I would say if you're unsuccessful in getting a hold of these people, let us know and we'll see what we can do to try to get them to respond.
Great, thank you. I appreciate that.
Yeah, the only thing I would say about access, I think that road is actually, it is the best access point. During the school day, though, trucks going through there could be, if this thing is done during school time, trucks accessing heavy equipment going through there could be disruptive, and you're gonna have to watch the times when that's happening. But have a plan for that to work around kids in the school traffic and all. But I do think that's probably the ideal access point.
Yeah, and as I said, even if access isn't something that's possible, at least utilities, because as someone's already said, all the service is already there. It would make it much easier to obviously construct the facility and minimize the disruption to the lot as well. If we could, do both access and utilities from that direction, I think has got a lot of, from a design perspective, has a lot of pluses.
Sure.
Yeah, it's certainly a much closer location for you to bring a duct bank in off the, to access your tower. And again, obviously cutting that duct bank in would be like making a roadway. So whether it was actually used much, that roadway would still be, to get the machines through there to dig. So just as long as that was, that the tree growth was put back, or some type of natural barrier or fencing was put there just to kind of keep that buffer, that, that kind of thing. Do you know what I mean? I mean, this bylaw does talk about having a natural buffer around these. And yes, you just don't want some type of direct line of sight to the tower, just so we can mitigate that issue.
Okay, thanks, Chris. All right, so Mr. Klasnick, is that pretty much it for you for tonight?
Yes, I can outline some other items. There were some requirements in the bylaws, and I know the board possesses waiver authority. So I don't know if that's something I would just email to David or Tamika, just to get an idea of.
Please, go ahead. Please do that. Yeah.
Okay. So I'll just to get an idea of your thoughts on that.
Okay. That sounds good. Okay, so thank you very much for coming and thanks for all the information. So we are going to continue with other business at our meeting, so you're free to disembark.
Okay, great. Thank you. And I'll get that action plan on the balloon test over to the town.
Thank you very
Have a
much.
great evening and thanks
Thank
again.
you.
All right,
Have a
take
great
care,
night.
guys. Yeah.
Hey, guys.
Okay, so I think the only other item on the agenda, unless Tamika has something else, is the minutes from February 3rd. I looked at them. I'm fine with them. I know she emailed them a few days ago over the weekend, I think.
I got one on the second page.
Yeah.
I just want to understand this. On the second page, it has me voting, and I think I was voting to grant the 20-foot setback, but I was not one of the voting members. There's a few different votes at the end of this, and for not really understanding which one was for which when they list like the roll call and the motion and whatnot. But it looks like, if I understand correctly, on the third motion, I might have voted to grant for that, but I think that should be Paul instead. Correct?
Is that your memory, Paul?
Yeah, I mean, I was one of the signers. It was me, you, and
Yeah, I didn't sign this one.
Yeah.
Because up above, she even has me. I asked to not be a voting member on this at the bottom of the main.
You did. I remember
Paragraph.
that. You're
Yeah,
right.
because I couldn't sign it. I wasn't going to be around.
Yeah, that's exactly right.
And,
Right, so-
and there were three motions. Like the first motion was to close. The second motion was for the to put the variance to a vote. And the third one looked like a vote. And I just want to make sure, even if Tamika weighs in on this, I'm not, is that last one that I voted on, is that for the actual variance?
Oh,
Should have been.
Oh, no, wait a minute, Chris, yeah, you voted, that's a vote. I'm looking, it says motion to put the variance to a vote you voted on. That's okay.
Yeah.
Then below it says.
It has you, and that actually has you, Rick, and Bob on that one. And then on the motion to grant the one, it has Rick, Bob, and I on that one. So I think you guys have been flopped on those two.
Oh, yeah, that's
Oh,
very
you're right.
possible.
Yeah.
The last two motions, right?
Yep, I hear what
Yeah.
you're saying, Chris.
Yeah, you're right, Chris. The last one there, it says roll call passed with a 3-0 vote. Should be me, not you.
Got it. Okay, so it should be Rick, Bob, and Paul for that one.
Yeah.
Okay, sorry about that. I'm changing it right now.
All right.
Because
All
I
right,
do
well,
remember Chris said he wasn't around to sign it.
Yeah.
I'll make a motion to accept the amended minute.
I'll second it.
Okay, all in favor? Aye.
Hi, Chris Uncle.
Okay, so that they're accepted. Tamika, do we have any other business?
No, I don't think so. I think we're just we're in good shape for next Wednesday for those couple of hearings. And yeah, nothing else other than that right now.
Great. All right.
Hey, do we have to make a motion to continue the tower, or do we just close that pre-conference and then he opens up a brand new one for the full site plan? How does that work?
Well, so technically a pre-conference is not a hearing.
Okay.
It wasn't anything that had to be published. So this was just a
Continued.
regular meeting. Yeah. So in this case, we would just adjourn the meeting as we normally would.
Thank you, Tamika. Always on the ball, kid.
Yeah. Okay.
Good try.
Saving us.
So do we? Yeah, Tamika, you do a great job. Do you? Does anyone have a motion to adjourn?
Make the motion.
I'll second.
Hey, all in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Okay. Well, thank you all very much, and I guess I will see you all in a week.